Once again, good evening, and I'm Ariel from Ecosustainability. I'm based in Indonesia, and I will be the speaker for today's sustainability reporting talks. Indonesia sustainability regulatory landscape and what it means for you. I hope that you get some tea or snacks while enjoying this webinar, and I hope by the end of this video, you can gain a fruitful insight of how the regulatory landscape in Indonesia is changing and what does it mean for you. Let's get started. Yep, and that's about us. So, Ecosustainability is a consultancy firm headquartered in Singapore with presence in Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. We are proud that we have diverse talent across Southeast Asia. And our core services include sustainability reporting, consulting, carbon credits, training, and policy. Other than that, we are also standards contributors to the ISSB, FERA, SESB, Singapore's Voluntary Carbon Market, SBTi, Science-Based Targets, and GHG Protocol. So numbers in a glance. We operate in 6 countries. I already mentioned that. We have already engaged in 102 projects. We have 21 to 22 consultants currently in our team, and we operate on 17 standards. Our presence, I already talked about that. And what we do. So we do green consulting. We provide expert advice to help organizations reduce greenhouse gas emission. We also do sustainability reporting. We can craft detailed sustainability reports that meet regulatory standards and stakeholder expectation. Also, we do education. We do training, educational initiative on technical and non-technical modules to sustainability. We also do think tank. We drive sustainability insights and innovations through research, policy recommendations, and actionable strategies. And the last one, we also do carbon credit projects that is very happening in Indonesia right now. We currently have 3 projects in Indonesia currently ongoing, and we are proud to be the technical expertise for them. This is the 17 standards and frameworks we work across. We have ISSB, TNFD, SESB, GRI, ISO 14604, and etc. And we are also proud to be the standards contributor of Gold Standards, FERA, GIR, SSSP. Basically, standards contributor are, we also help in developing the standards. We don't just apply the standards in our work. We also help developing them. So let's jump straight into the agenda and objective for today's talk. So we have 3 main objectives today. First, we will unpack the regulatory landscape evolution here in Indonesia. So you will leave with a clear picture of where the rules stand today. Secondly, we will spend a good sum of time on PSPK 1 and PSPK 2, Indonesia's new sustainability disclosure standards, and how they align with ISSB. And third, we'll close with the carbon credit regulatory evolution. The newest and frankly, one of the most exciting developments in Indonesia. By the end of the session, I hope that you don't just know what these regulations say, but what they actually mean for your business as well. So before we start, just a few quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded, so if you miss something, you'll be able to go back and rewatch it on our YouTube. And please keep your microphones muted throughout, just to minimize background noise for everyone. And if you have a question, just drop it in the chat box, and my team will either answer it directly or will address it during our Q&A discussion at the end. And remember, there's no such thing as a silly question. If something's on your mind, just ask it. This is a safe space where we can all learn from one another. All right, let's get started with our talk on the Indonesia sustainability regulatory landscape. So before that, let's talk about the foundation. Let's start with the distinction that trips a lot of people, even seasoned professionals. So what is sustainability versus ESG? Sometimes Indonesian people, I often see they sometimes mix up. Okay, my company already done ESG. Okay, my company already done sustainability. So what is that? So sustainability, think of it like this. Sustainability is like a concept, it's a vision, it's a dream. So you can see a poster. This is in Indonesian for my Indonesian colleagues. You can see. So imagine a child that wants to be healthy, to be strong, and to live long. That's sustainability, his dream. ESG is like a report or like a framework to measure if this kid is going to live long, is he healthy, based on the cholesterol level, the blood pressure, the sugar level in the blood system. So this is basically the sustainability and ESG terms that people often mix. Okay. Then let's move on. So Indonesia is actually committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2060, or sooner if possible. This is the destination and the point where emissions produced are balanced by emissions absorbed. So since net zero emission 2060 cannot be achieved all at once, the government has broken it down into NDC periods. So 5-year cycles in line with Paris Agreement. The first NDC is 29% reduction unconditional and 41% with international support by 2030. But actually in 2022, the government they raised the target. So they raised the target to 32% and 43% with support from international. So companies must start acting now, integrating sustainability to help achieve this net zero emissions target. So sustainability reporting, the sustainability reporting, you've seen it often, is a public disclosure of a company's non-financial performance to help stakeholders make informed decisions based on the company's sustainability and long-term value. Unlike a CSR report, which is more about goodwill storytelling, sustainability reporting follows structured frameworks such as SSP, GRI, TCFD, you name it, a lot of it. And it is meant to give investors, regulators, and other stakeholders decision useful information, covering things like governance, strategy, risk management, and measurable metrics. So investors could actually measure and make decisions based on this information, not just as TSR is a goodwill storytelling. So let's move on. The evolving landscape of sustainability reporting in Indonesia. Let's start with an underrated regulation that people more often forget. For my Indonesian colleagues, POJK 51 2017 or POJK 51 2017. This regulation paved the way for sustainability in Indonesia because many people mistakenly believe this regulation applies only to financial institutions because the title itself is Implementation of Sustainable Finance. However, it requires companies to provide and prepare a sustainability report disclosing their economic, social, and environmental performance applicable to financial service institution, banking is financial institution, issuers, and public companies in the Indonesian Stock Exchange. So it's not specifically only for banks. You need to disclose your sustainability report also if your company is also are inside the Indonesian Stock Exchange. Then along the way, the OJK also published SA OJK 16 2021. It's a guideline or technical instruction on the format and content of the annual report, sustainability report. This is the guidance to, what are the core contents, which should you disclose, the materiality information, etc. It's on this guideline. And the taxonomy is identification of activities that can be categorized as green or not. So maybe let's say my company is installing solar panels. What does that mean for our company? In this taxonomy, then it means, okay, your company is heading towards green or transitional. And maybe, sorry, my company is still using coal for energy generator for the next 10 years. Then that's not transitioning into sustainability. That's taxonomy. And the evolution is like you have the base regulation, you have a guideline, you have a taxonomy, and we have a new phase in regulatory reporting come into play in 2027. It's PSPK 1 and 2, which is full alignment with IFRS S1 and S2. So what is it? The new phase in sustainability reporting mandate or the PSPK 1 and PSPK 2. So the integration of financial and sustainability standards. So on the 1st of July 2025, the Indonesian Sustainability Standards Board or Dewan Standar Keberlanjutan Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia (IAI) officially ratified Indonesia's first National Sustainability Disclosure Standards or SPK. It consists of PSPK 1 and PSPK 2, and the standards will become effective from the 1st January 2027. And PSPK aligns with the ISSB. What is ISSB overall? So, the International Sustainability Standards Board, or ISSB, was created under the IFRS Foundation for the accountants here, you know it, IFRS, to bring the same discipline to sustainability reporting that IFRS brings to financial reporting. The ISSB standards are designed to be the global baseline for sustainability reporting. Answering the too many standards and hard comparability the investors and the practitioners face in today's world. So, this is the answer for ISSB. So you might have seen this. Hundreds of standards, frameworks, and rating systems emerged over the past decade, each with different metrics, definitions, and disclosure requirements. The result? Confusion and fatigue, even for large companies. ISSB answers this problem, and it is the global baseline in the future for sustainability reporting. So there are two versions currently ongoing for IFRS S1 and S2 ISSB. The S1 is the general sustainability disclosures, and S2 is climate-related disclosures. So this is the differences between PSPK 1 and PSPK 2. So for PSPK 1, it covers all sustainability-related risks and opportunities that could reasonably affect a company's cash flow or access to finance. Meanwhile, the PSPK 2 focuses specifically on climate-related risks, which is physical and transition, and climate-related opportunities. And what must be disclosed? You need to disclose only the material sustainability and climate risk and opportunities across environmental, social, and governance topics. We are on the same page, right? And then the primary focus for PSPK 1 is to broad sustainability integration into financial reporting. Meanwhile, the PSPK 2 is the climate change as a financial risk and strategic issue. So many people ask me, PSPK1 is heavily more on the qualitative side, and PSPK2 is heavily on the quantitative side. Because in PSPK2, you have GHG accounting, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, scenario analysis, and more. Meanwhile, in PSPK1, the sustainability disclosures, so the general requirements for sustainability disclosure, it is not required. It is optional. It is optional. So example of topics in PSPK 1 and 2, you can see in 1, it is water management, human capital, biodiversity, community relation, governance practices, etc. In PSPK 2, because it's climate, it's more on the flooding, typhoons, heat stress, carbon pricing, and energy transition risks. All that related to climate risk. So the example, under PSPK 1 and PSPK 2, you need to only disclose the material information that could affect the cash flow or financial. So the material sustainability risk of an island resort might be nature and biodiversity dependency, and then supply chain issue, water supply, waste management. And for the climate, it is tropical cyclones, typhoons, sea level rise, coral bleaching, reef degradation, because the resort is attracting the visitors because of their beauty. So if this nature biodiversity dependency is finished because of the climate risk, of the climate, of the sea level rise, the coral bleaching, then the island resort might lose its financing, might lose its revenue, might lose its access to finance. And here's a question. For the case of island resort, does data privacy or cybersecurity risk impacts the cash flow of this resort? I think it doesn't impact the cash flow of this resort, correct? So under SSB or under PSPK 1 and PSPK 2, if your information or if your risk is not material, you don't need to disclose it under SSB. Another example is you own a large factory, and in the report sometimes you disclose that, oh, sorry, my employees forgot to turn off the lamps during the evening. Is that material? Is that important for your company's financial, for your company's cash flow? I think it doesn't have a significant impact, a significant sound that the investor will say, okay, this is important and our decision might change because of this information. That's the importance of materiality in ISSP. So this is the fundamental shift that people often confuse, because I think 95% of companies that have sustainability report in Indonesia currently right now are aligning themselves with GRI. GRI is more of the company's impact to the environment, to the social. Meanwhile, ISSB is the exactly opposite side. So it's the outside in. What are the environment? What are the social impact, risk, and opportunities for your industry, for your company? I'm sorry, for your company. What does they risk? What does those risk impacts your company? That is SSP. So as IFRS S1 and S2 or SPK 1 and 2 mark a fundamental shift in sustainability reporting from an impact-centric focus to the disclosure of financial risks and opportunities, and from voluntary reporting to structured mandatory obligation. Keep in mind, SSP is mandatory for listed companies in Indonesia Stock Exchange. From standalone reports to integration with financial statements. But many people say, okay, so I just need to change my reporting from GRI to SSP, it's not correct. I think you just need to report SSP alongside GRI. If you already have GRI, that's good. You need to, to add SSP as another part for your investors. So your investors know what are the financially material risks and opportunities that your business has. So as of June 2025, the SSP already represents over 50% of global GDP, 36 jurisdictions more specifically, and around 60% of global market capitalization have adopted or are aligning with ISSP standards in their regulatory frameworks. And this is important for Indonesia. Here, the tiered implementation. So just shortly, from the 1st January 2027, it will be mandatory for listed companies. And we will see the first publication of the SPK compliance reports in early 2028. So people ask me, who who is covered? Well, the final scope will be determined by the Financial Service Authority or the OJK. The Sustainability Disclosure Standards Roadmap indicates that the primary focus will include companies listed on the IDX, Bursa Saham Indonesia, IISG, financial service institution, banks, insurance providers, and capital market participants, and other publicly accountable entities currently subject to POJK 51. You still remember the foundational regulation that starts it all, POJK 51? That's it. All under POJK 51 should disclose. And early adoption is actually strongly encouraged, particularly for companies with international investors, global supply chain exposure, and regulatory obligation in the European Union. For example, CSRD or the supply chain due diligence. Because European Union, investors want to know how Indonesian company behave. How does your Indonesian company aligning with sustainability standards? How do they align? How do they react to the sustainability risks and opportunities? They want to know. Then, which standards to use? I get this question so often. So, for impact reporting, I think you still use GRI. Because, for example, you have CSR and then you have impactful for banks. If you have credits disbursements to the MSME, then GRI will be good because investors want to know to which extent you impact the social, environment, and economic. So the audience for GRI is actually multi-stakeholders. It's broad. And for ISSP or PSPK1 and PSPK2 is for financial reporting. It's specifically for investors because they want to know. So GRI, SASP, and ISSP were not created to replace one another. In fact, if you disclose based on 3 of these, then it's great for your company. And you can support your implementation, your sustainability report implementation by using taxonomy, TKBI, and also POJK 16/2021 as a supporting guideline for implementing your company's sustainability strategy. Remember, complementing, not replacing. So my company needs to comply with SPK. My company needs to comply with ISSP. So what should I do? So 3 golden rules in sustainability. First, start with the data you already have. Then do not aim for the perfection on day one. I've seen this. People wants to, okay, I want my company to be sustainable by 2028. Wow, ambitious. However, sustainability is a long-term game. And I believe that the one who stays the longest and the one who has continuous improvement is better than one who's wants to be perfect at one moment and then drops by the next and maybe the continuous year. The third one is involve the right people. Sustainability, it's a team effort. And just to give you a brief information, we have 9 steps just to give you advice. You can see you need to understand your business context. You need to see which information is material. You need to map your organization's data. What is your baseline for your carbon scope 1, scope 2? And then you need to ensure collaboration across all the parties in your organization. You need to disclose your roadmap. You need to disclose your targets, and continuous improvement is important. Start small, stay consistent, build forward. So maybe you are wondering, oh, why sustainability reporting is mandatory? Why I need to disclose sustainability reporting? That's why it matters. There are some specific reasons why it matters. First, I already told you ISSB is the global baseline. It will provide a global comparability, and Indonesian companies will use the same data language in the global markets. So it ensures Indonesian companies are visible and investable on the global stage. Second one, it's investor confidence. If you provide reliable information, then it improves the assessment of risks and opportunities of your companies. Then it ensures the market readiness. The SPK or ISSB aligned disclosures increasingly required in global supply chain. So it will ensure that your organization is ready to the global supply chain. And the last one is climate risk transparency. This is the most important one because decision useful climate data supports resilience in a highly vulnerable nation such as Indonesia. Because because Indonesia is an archipelago country, so we have a lot of climate-related risk, flooding, and then sea level rise. How does it impact your business assets, your business properties, your business operation? For example, if your company has assets in the coastal region and it actually affected by the waves or the typhoons, then your business will be impacted as well. Your financial will be impacted as well. That's why ISSB is important. So what does it mean for you? Well, do not just comply. You need to shift the concept to sustainable business strategy. This is very different. Companies still say, okay, I have sustainable business strategy. But I say, do you have sustainable business strategy? And they're confused. Oh, what is it? What are the difference? So sustainability strategy is usually on the impact side. It runs parallel to business operation, often viewed as a compliance obligation or a separate CSR project. Meanwhile, sustainable business strategy is integrated into the core decision making. So it is integrated into capital allocation, risk management, and long-term strategic decision. Basically, sustainable business strategy ensures your business resilience. Is your business resilience for the next 20, 30, 40 years or not? That's what ISSB tries to solve. And let's move on. From sustainability reporting to carbon credit. This is the one that's currently happening in Indonesia right now. So a new chapter for Indonesian regulatory landscape. But first thing first, for you who still don't know what is carbon credit. So carbon credit is actually a certificate representing 1 ton of CO2 equivalent. Either it's reduced, avoided, or removed. So it can be removed or absorbed or reduced by projects such as reforestation, such as energy efficiency and then renewable energy. And these credits can be bought and sold to offset emissions elsewhere. So, for example, a company A has a carbon credit projects worth 10 million ton of CO2e, and the company B emits 10 million CO2e, and the company B needs to offset those emissions. Then it needs to buy from company A. That's basically what carbon credit is. And the analogy is like a parking permits. So imagine a city issues limited parking permits, say 50. Then 50, all done. And you need more spots than you have permits for. So you buy spare permits from someone who used fewer than theirs. For example, a company bought five, but they used three. So you bought another two, the unused two, from the company that bought five. For example, from a reforestation project that saves space by cutting emission. And you pay them, you pay these credits, and they are incentivized to keep reducing. And the total number of permits shrinks over time, pushing everyone towards real emission cuts, not just trading. So you still need to have a sustainable business strategy. You still need to target towards net zero. You cannot say, okay, for example, you are a coal company. Okay, I will still dig coal. I will still extract coal until 2050 without any sustainability strategy. You cannot do that. You still need to offset and think what are your sustainability strategy, what are your future going to be. That's what this carbon credit is. So what are the underlying foundation of regulation for carbon credit in Indonesia? We have two, Perpres number 98 2021, Perpres 98 2021, and Perpres number 110 2025, Perpres 110 2025. So why does this two regulation is important for you? So this is the foundational framework for Indonesian national carbon economy system. Okay, so actually the Perpres number 98 2021, the left one, is no longer effective. It is changed, it is upgraded, improved by the number 110 2025. This regulation is not merely an environmental regulation. It represents the development of state capacity to manage a carbon economy. And carbon is no longer positioned solely as a supporting instrument for achieving Indonesia's NDC targets, but also as an independent national economic instrument. This represents a major paradigm shift in Indonesia. So I will talk just five crucial upgrades from presidential regulation from 2021 to 2025. So first, there is clearer recognition and regulation of the voluntary carbon market. So the number 110 2025, the new regulation provides a far more explicit legal foundation for ETX carbon, voluntary carbon market. You can trade carbon offset in the ETX carbon right now. It clarifies the recognition of carbon units, domestic and international certification schemes, international transfer mechanisms, authorization procedures, and corresponding adjustment mechanisms. So the regulation creates a more operational framework for the use of international standards such as PERA, gold standards, and other recognized mechanisms. Second one is actually strengthening of the carbon economic value and ECA architecture, nilai ekonomi karbon. So no longer positions carbon economic value merely as an emission control instrument, but as a part of the broader development of a national carbon economy system. So the new regulation strengthens the NECA framework through a more comprehensive and integrated set of instruments, including carbon trading, resource-based payment, carbon levies, the carbon unit management, carbon allocation, and more. So the new regulation clarifies that carbon trading activities may proceed simultaneously in parallel with efforts to achieve Indonesia's NDC targets, while maintaining the integrity of Indonesia's commitment under the Paris Agreement. And this is the most recent one, and maybe the most important one this month is the establishment of a separate carbon unit registry system, or SRUK, System Registry Unit Carbon. So it is a dedicated system for the management of carbon units within the implementation of nilai ekonomi carbon. So this system is responsible for carbon unit management, ownership registration, trading transaction, and market interoperability. The last one is strengthening cross-sector governance and the role of regional governments. So since the last regulation didn't have Pemda, pemerintah daerah, or DPRD, pemerintah daerah, or the regional governments to involve in the carbon credit projects, the new regulation has told the regional governments or the Pemda to involve in these carbon credit projects. To put it simply, it's like that. So this is a quick illustration of what changed from the nilai economy, the old regulation to the newer regulation. As you can see, it's just all the good stuff, but it's upgraded and it's added. For example, as you can see, for my Indonesian colleagues, for Indonesian mates, I'm sorry, it's in Indonesian. So if you are elsewhere from Indonesia, I hope that you understand. This is an illustrative guidance for you, my Indonesian colleagues, of the differences and what the upgrades are. And talking about SRUK, or the Carbon Unit Registry System, which was launched 3 weeks ago on July 9th, 2026. It's reinforced by the Minister of Environment, Regulation number 10, 2026, and POJK number 10, 2026. Building on the newer regulation with a transparent national registry integrated within the Carbon Exchange or the ADX Carbon and international registries. This launch of the SRUK, the Carbon Unit Registry System, opens up an estimated 5 trillion rupiah. For my Singaporean mates, it's roughly 350 million Singapore dollars. For my US dollar, for one using US dollars, it's around 300 million US dollars in initial transaction potential from the forestry sector. Currently, plus minus or roughly 31.7 million tons of CO2e traded, with the energy, waste, and marine sectors to follow. So, with the largest economic scale in Southeast Asia and the most complete regulatory infrastructure, Press number 110, Permenhub 6 and 7, SRUK, POJK number 10, Indonesia is positioning itself as the leader of the ASEAN carbon market. As my colleague in eco-sustainability always say, Indonesia is the most mature one in terms of carbon credit market here in ASEAN, not merely as a follower, but as a regional standard setter. And maybe that's all from my explanation. If you have any question, I'm really open to hear what do you have in mind, or let's have this 10 to 15 minutes as a discussion of this Indonesia sustainability regulatory landscape. If you have any questions, just drop it in the chat box and I will try to answer it. Or if you want to speak directly, just open your microphone, and maybe I can try to answer your questions. It's if you are Indonesian, you want to ask in bahasa Indonesia, it's all right. I will try to answer it. If you want to ask in English, you can also uh, ask in English. It's up to you. I'm open to any discussion. I'm open to any question. Everyone.
Hi Ariel, there is a question from Park Dairies.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, Pak Deris. For mining company, is there an update on impact regulation of new Perpres? The Perpres yang 110 2025 ya, Pak. Number 110 2025 about carbon credits, correct? Yes, 110. Okay, so mining is actually falls under the energy sector alongside the coal-fired power, gas plant, and refineries because mining usually coal are used for the energy generation, biasanya digunakan untuk generate energy. Jadi itu juga masuknya energy company, Pak Deris. Masuknya tetap sektor besar. Subsektornya mungkin ada coal, mungkin ada mining, terus ada yang lain-lainnya juga, seperti renewable energy dan juga macam-macamnya. Ya, so coal including benar. Based on Perpres tahun benar Pak. Jadi jadi untuk yang 110 2025 kan sekarang yang 98 tahun 2021 sudah tidak berlaku. It's not the 98 2021 is no longer in is no longer effective. Jadi the 110 2025 is currently in regulation right now. So the new regulation has the batas atas emisi. If I'm not mistaken, currently, yes. So coal industry, coal mining will get batas atas emisi. Okay. Do you believe the consulting sector will be ready for the introduction of mandatory SDG reporting in the qualified specialist, or what should they doing to support clients now? Okay, really interesting question here, Mr. Tony. So actually, in Indonesia itself, I think there is still a lack of reliable consultants to provide knowledge about ISSP, especially IFRS S1 and S2, for the companies to prepare in 2027. So even though the first report will be in 2028, early 2028, the 2027 will be the year where these companies will try to contact the consultants, will contact with all the we try to contact all the consultants to ask for help in their ISSP or IFRS sustainability and climate disclosures. I think in terms of qualified specialists in Indonesia, there is still lacking because the FSA or the credential from ISSP. Currently, there is only 12 people in Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken. So 12 people that has the credential of understanding ISSP, compare it with how many companies in need of ISSP sustainability reporting, and what should they be doing to support clients now? I think the most important thing is start early. You can briefly discuss with them that, hello, this new regulation is mandatory, this new standard is going to be mandatory. You should try to communicate it with your organization bodies, and just start slowly but surely, because when the time runs out, I think people will get panic. They will say, "Oh, how do I need to disclose ISSB, the new IFRS S1 and S2, the new standards? What does it mean?" It is so different than GRI. It's not impact. It's like uh, it's more on the outside in scope rather than the impact to the environment, impact to the social. So I don't think that the consulting sector will be ready, Mr. Tony. At least now, I don't think they will be ready, because even though a consultant say, I'm already, um, I'm already experienced in ISSP, but let's say how many reports that, or how many companies that you already talked to and then try to understand what their business, and then align it with ISSP. That's it. Maybe for my answer is, there is lack of talent, especially in Indonesia. Maybe if it's Singapore, it's not. Singapore has around 100 plus credential holder. They have a bunch of experts there. For Indonesia, only 12. And in eco-sustainability, we are proud to have one of our Malaysian colleagues, Kigan. He is actually also a credential holder. Shout out to Gigan. So if any of your companies need any help in your ISSP sustainability report, you can contact us later. And that's maybe for Mr. Tony. Does it answer you? Okay, I will move on to Mr. Omkar. For the PSPK2 S2 reporting requirements, are there any threshold for the companies? Okay, threshold for the companies applicable for mandatory reporting, like we have in ASP2. Oh, no, 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 not in the same way. ASP S2 uses hard quantitative threshold. So an entity falls into group 1, 2, or 3 if it meets 2 or 3 criteria, right? So such as consolidated revenue, gross assets, employee headcount, each group with its own numeric cutoffs and mandatory start date. PSPK2 or in Indonesia doesn't work that way. The standard itself sets the content and the structure of climate disclosure. So it deliberately does not prescribe which entities must apply it or when. That determination is left entirely to the Financial Service Authority in implementing the regulation, which is still in upgrade. If you remember the POJK 51 2017, the foundational baseline of all sustainability reporting in Indonesia, that is currently being upgraded right now in Indonesia. So we are still have no answers to this yet, but I think no, not in the same way as AASP, not in the same way as Australia one. But I think maybe in the next year, when the 1st January 2027 comes, I think we don't know. Maybe the Financial Service Authority, the regulators will say, okay, scope 1, 2, 3, the group 1, 2, 3, we will have a specific regulation for group 1, group 2, group 3. but I don't see this yet in Indonesia currently. Does it answer your question? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Omkar. Okay. Oh, good evening. Selamat malam, Pak Zainuddin. Thank you very much for attending the session. Apakah
Terima
penurunan
kasih.
emisi dari pemanfaatan bahan bakar dan material alternatif di industri semen dapat diterbitkan sebagai SPK GRK dan diperkerjakan melalui SRK? Lalu bagaimana mencegah double counting antara klaim perusahaan, pembeli unit karbon, dan pencapaian indisi Indonesia? Wah, sangat ini sekali Pak, sangat mantap sekali Pak pertanyaannya. Karena semen sendiri itu industri yang karbon intensif ya Pak. Jadi em, pastinya saya percaya juga banyak industri semen di Indonesia juga sudah mulai merancang target mereka terhadap sustainability, salah satunya pengurangan emisi. Dan apakah emisi ini bisa diterbitkan sebagai carbon credit project seperti itu ya Pak Zainuddin? Sebenarnya bisa, tapi ada syarat teknis yang perlu digarisbawahi Pak. Tidak otomatis semua penurunan emisi dari industri itu bisa langsung terbit jadi SPE GRK, gas rumah kaca. Jadi secara prinsip penurunan emisi dari substitusi batu bara dengan bahan bakar alternatif seperti biomass, seperti material alternatif, clinker, slag, abu, fly ash itu di kiln semen sendiri termasuk kategori aksi mitigasi yang bisa diajukan lewat jalur SPA GRK. Karena skemanya dirancang untuk proyek mitigasi lintas sektor yang terukur, dilaporkan dan diverifikasi sesuai standar SNI ISO 14004-2 yang berlaku saat ini. Tapi ada dua syarat kunci Pak yang sering jadi hambatan justru di sektor semen. Itu baseline-nya Pak, sama additionality. Jadi harus memuat rencana aksi mitigasi, metodologi, pengurangan emisi, analisis dampak lingkungan sosial, AMDAL, serta hasil konsultasi publik, divalidasi lembaga independen, terakreditasi. Jadi banyak sekali Pak dokumen yang dibutuhkan untuk terutama untuk industri semen. Karena co-processing itu sudah jadi praktik arus utama di industri semen, Pak, sejak beberapa tahun terakhir. Jadi validator kemungkinan besar akan mempertanyakan apakah penurunan emisi ini benar-benar di luar business as usual atau sudah jadi baseline industri Bapak. Jadi satu ton CO2e yang nyata, permanen atau terukur di setiap SPA GRK yang diterbitkan itu mewakili pengurangan emisi GRK yang setara dengan 1 ton CO2e yang nyata. Jadi untuk mencegah double counting itu ada 3 mekanisme yang saling mengunci. Ada registrinya Pak, seperti saya tadi sudah bilang, ada SRUK, itu harus terintegrasi dengan SRNPPI dan IDX karbon. Jadi dengan adanya SRUK ini memungkinkan untuk bisa Pak. Sekarang udah ada registri karbonnya sendiri. Jadi harus didaftarkan di SRNPPI, SRUK, dan IDX karbon. Seperti itu Pak. Jadi kalau dijual domestik, tambah lagi Pak, dijual domestik atau dalam negeri, itu tidak berlaku Pak sepertinya. Karena reduksinya tetap tercatat dalam inventory nasional. Cukup transfer kepemilikan di SRUK aja. Lalu corresponding adjustment-nya untuk transfer internasional itu baru wajib kalau unitnya diekspor ke pembeli luar negeri. Jadi kalau untuk domestik itu masih bisa dijual Pak nampaknya. Bisa Pak, tapi banyak syarat teknis yang perlu digarisbawahi. Seperti itu Pak Zainuddin. Semoga menjawab.
Terima kasih, Pak.
Ya, terima kasih Pak. Semoga menjawab. Kalau ada pertanyaan bisa tanya di WA saya langsung aja Pak Zainuddin.
Siap, terima kasih.
Okay, I think maybe that's all for this session. And please keep in mind, we have our regular talks each Monday on every Monday, and we would love to have you in our webinar series. Next week is going to be introduction to carbon accounting. If you are interested about GHG protocol, how to measure your scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, you can join the next week session the same time as today. And it will be hosted by my colleague from Philippines, Geraldine. And I hope you will get a fruitful insight. This is a really exciting session, everyone. Please do register. And we have Thailand, TBAM, and more to come. And if you have any inquiries, any question, just ask my colleagues here. You can take a screenshot. For Indonesia, you can ask me. You can email. You can WhatsApp me or Pak Henry. You can ask Teng for Malaysia. You can ask Sarin for Thailand. For Philippines, you can ask CD. And please do join our community. Please scan this barcode. You can join our WhatsApp community. And yep, I hope that you join the community, and we will stay tuned for the ongoing updates. And hopefully we can meet again in the future. Okay, Pak Deris, thank you very much for attending this webinar. I hope in the future, if we kalau ada sesi bahasa Indonesia lain laginya, kita akan beritahu Pak, terutama kepada para audiens dari Indonesia. Terima kasih. Oh, eh, boleh Kak Bunga bisa kontak saya di sini? Boleh kontak di situ ya Kak, di 0878700800. Okay, and this is our hope. We hope to build a world where every company is a sustainability superstar. And we would love to have you stay in touch with us. That's all for today's session. Terima kasih sekali untuk para attendees dari Indonesia yang sudah join. Saya harap bakal jadi fruitful insight untuk perusahaan Anda, untuk professional development Anda sendiri, dan ke depannya. Karena saya percaya sustainability dan green economy akan jadi hal yang besar di Indonesia dalam 5 tahun ke depan. Maybe that's all from me. The time is already past 8.30, sudah lewat 8.30. Saya harap penjelasan saya cukup gampang dimengerti, dan see you on the next time. Terima kasih semua, sampai jumpa. Thank you.